I walked into the family gathering expecting another lesson in Thai culture. What I got instead was the moment my entire relationship unraveled. Narisa's uncle, 3 beers deep and laughing at something her cousin said, turned to me with that slightly unfocused smile drunk people get when they're about to be too honest. He said something in Thai that made the table go silent. Narisa's face went pale. Her mother looked uncomfortable. I asked my friend Som Kid, who I'd brought along, what had been said. He hesitated, glanced at Narisa, then told me. The uncle had just contradicted everything Narisa had been telling me about Thai family obligations for the past year and 5 months. Everything. The monthly payments, the gift expectations, the respect money, the cultural requirements that had cost me £28,000. Her own uncle had just called it nonsense. And worse, he'd said her parents thought she was taking advantage of me. That's when I understood. The woman I'd been sending money to for 17 months, the woman who'd expertly weaponized my guilt about Western colonialism, my progressive values, my desperate desire not to be another exploitative foreigner, had been systematically lying to me about her own culture. And I'd been the perfect mark because I was so terrified of being the bad guy that I never questioned whether I was being played. My name is Duncan McLeish. I'm 64 years old, from Edinburgh, and I spent my entire career as a social worker focused on immigrant communities and racial justice. I'm telling you this because it matters. It matters that I wasn't some ignorant tourist who stumbled into Thailand with no awareness of power dynamics or colonial history. I'd spent decades thinking about exactly these issues. I'd read extensively about Western exploitation in Southeast Asia. I understood the economic disparities, the historical legacy of colonialism, the way white Western men had treated Asian women for generations. I was hyper-aware of all of it, which is exactly why Narisa's manipulation worked so perfectly. She didn't target my ignorance. She targeted my knowledge. She targeted my guilt. She targeted my values. I met Narisa on a dating app about 2 years ago. I'd taken early retirement after my wife passed away, and a friend suggested I try living abroad for a while. Thailand seemed like a good choice. Affordable, beautiful, rich culture. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just maybe some companionship, someone to show me around, help me understand the place. Narisa's profile mentioned she had a degree in international relations from Confronting University. Her English was excellent. We met for coffee in Udon Thani where I was staying. She was warm, intelligent, articulate. We talked about Thai history, about the Vietnam War era when American soldiers flooded into Isaan, about how Western tourism had shaped and sometimes damaged Thai culture. She spoke thoughtfully about the complexities of Thailand's relationship with the West, about economic exploitation, about the stereotype of Thai women that Hollywood had created. I was impressed. Here was someone who understood nuance, who could discuss these issues with sophistication. When she agreed to see me again, I felt like I'd found someone special. The first time Narisa invoked Thai culture as a requirement rather than just information, I didn't even notice it happening. We'd been seeing each other for about 5 weeks. Things were going well. She invited me to meet her parents, which felt significant. The night before the visit, she explained that in Thai culture, when a man meets a woman's parents for the first time, he brings gifts and a monetary gift to show respect. She said this was especially important in Isaan, where she was from, and where traditional culture was stronger than in Bangkok. The monetary gift, she explained, was called Namjai money, a gesture of good heart. She suggested 15,000 baht would be appropriate, maybe 20,000, to show I was serious about her. That's about 400 pounds. I asked if this was really necessary. She looked hurt. She explained that in Thai culture, respect for elders is paramount. To show up empty-handed would be a terrible insult. Her parents would think I didn't value her, that I was just using her. Western men had a bad reputation in Thailand, she said gently. They took what they wanted from Thai women and gave nothing back. Did I want her parents to think I was like that? Of course I didn't. I gave her 20,000 baht. Looking back, I can see this was the pilot program for everything that followed. She'd established several key elements. Thai culture had requirements that cost money. Questioning these requirements was disrespectful. Western men had a moral debt to overcome, and I needed to prove I was different from other foreigners. It was a perfect framework for exploitation. The family meeting itself was lovely, actually. Her parents were kind, welcoming people. Her mother cooked an incredible meal. Her father spoke limited English but was warm and friendly. I gave them the money in an envelope as Narisa had instructed. They seemed pleased but not overwhelmed. Looking back, I wonder if they even knew how much was in there, or if 15,000 would have been more than sufficient, or if any money was actually culturally required at all. After the meal, as we were driving back to my apartment, Narisa thanked me for being respectful. She said her parents had liked me very much. Then she explained that now that I'd met her family, there were certain cultural expectations about our relationship. In Thai culture, she said, once a man has been introduced to the family, he's expected to provide monthly support to show his commitment. It's called family respect money. The amount varies depending on the man's income and the family's needs, but for a foreigner with my resources, she suggested 30,000 baht per month, about 700 pounds. She would be appropriate. That seemed like a lot, I said. She nodded sympathetically. She understood it was different from Western culture. But in Thailand, family takes care of family. As my girlfriend, her family was now my family too. And in Isaan, where economic opportunities were limited, children were expected to support their parents. Usually, it would be her responsibility, but since I was the man in the relationship, and since I had more resources, it would be disrespectful for me not to contribute. She could continue paying from her own money if I preferred, she said, but that would make her family lose face, because it would suggest I didn't value them. I asked if all Thai foreign couples did this. She said the good ones did, the ones where the foreign man actually respected Thai culture and cared about his girlfriend's family. The other kind, the ones who just took and never gave those relationships, were shameful. I didn't want to be that kind of relationship, did I? I started sending 30,000 baht every month. I rationalized it as similar to supporting one's in-laws in any culture, just more formalized. And honestly, I could afford it. I had a decent pension and some savings. 700 pounds a month wasn't going to break me. If this was how things were done in Thailand, who was I to impose Western expectations? That's what I told myself. But there was something else too, something I'm less proud of. I wanted to be seen as one of the good ones. I wanted Narisa to tell her family that her foreign boyfriend wasn't like those other foreign men. I wanted Thai people to see me and think, there's someone who gets it, who respects our culture, who isn't here to exploit. My progressive politics weren't just abstract principles to me, they were part of my identity. I'd spent my career fighting against exploitation and injustice. The idea that I might be perceived as continuing that legacy of Western exploitation in Asia was genuinely distressing to me. Narisa understood this about me, and she used it brilliantly. Over the next several months, the cultural requirements multiplied. Every request was framed the same way. This is Thai culture. This is what respectful foreign partners do. This is how you prove you're different from exploitative Westerners. There was the Sin-Sod negotiation, which began at 300,000 baht reasonable, I'd read, for an educated woman from a middle-class family, but somehow escalated to 600,000 baht by the time we actually got engaged. Narisa explained that the initial figure had been before her parents fully understood my financial situation. Now that they knew I was comfortable, a higher sin-sod was expected. In Thai culture, the sin-sod reflects the man's respect for the woman and her family. A wealthy Western man paying the same as a poor Thai man would be seen as stingy, as not truly valuing his bride. Did I want her family to think I didn't value her? There were the Buddhist holiday obligations. Every major Buddhist holiday required monetary donations to the temple, gifts for the family, and special ceremonial expenses. Narisa would text me a few days before each holiday with the required amount. Songkran needed 40,000 baht for family gifts and temple donations. Loi Krathong needed 25,000. Visakha Bucha needed 30,000. The amount seemed high, but Narisa explained that for a family with a foreign son-in-law, expectations were different. The community would judge them based on how I behaved. If I was stingy with religious obligations, it would bring shame to her entire family. There was the spirit house situation. Narisa's family wanted to build a new spirit house for their property, and tradition required that I, as the future son-in-law, contribute to this. The cost was 90,000 baht, about £2,000. When I hesitated, Narisa explained that spirit houses are deeply sacred in Thai culture. They house the protective spirits of the property. Refusing to help build one would be spiritually dangerous and culturally insulting. Did I want to bring bad luck to her family? Did I want her parents to think I didn't care about their spiritual well-being? I paid for the spirit house. What made all of this so effective was how Narisa framed every single interaction around my fear of being a colonizer. She never said that word explicitly, but the implication was always there. When I questioned an expense, she'd sigh sadly and say, "I understand. Western people think different. They think money more important than respect." When I suggested that maybe some of these cultural obligations seemed financially unsustainable, she'd look hurt and say, "You have so much, and we have so little. But you count every baht. This is why Thai people don't trust foreigners." When I tried to do my own research about Thai cultural practices, she'd dismiss whatever I found. "That's for Bangkok Thai people, not Isaan people like us." Or "That's what rich Thai people do, not regular families like mine." Or "That's old information, culture changing now. You don't understand because you're not Thai." And always, the comparison to other foreign men. My friend's foreign boyfriend, he gives 50,000 baht every month. He never complain. My cousin's foreign husband, he bought house for her family. He understand Thai culture. The implicit message was clear. Good foreign men, respectful foreign men, anti-colonial foreign men, they gave freely and never questioned. Only the exploitative ones counted their money. I want to be clear about something. I wasn't a complete fool. I had doubts. There were moments when I wondered if the financial demands were excessive. But every time doubt crept in, I'd counter it with my own internal narrative about power and privilege. I'd think about the economic disparity between us. I had a comfortable pension and savings. She was working odd jobs in Udon Thani. I'd think about the historical context. Generations of Western men had come to Thailand, taken what they wanted, and left nothing behind. I'd think about my own values. I'd built my entire professional identity around fighting, exploitation, and supporting marginalized communities. How could I apply those values to my work, but not to my personal life? How could I claim to understand structural inequality, but then nickel and dime my Thai girlfriend's family? Every doubt was reframed through this lens, and Narisa, consciously or unconsciously, reinforced this reframing constantly. She'd mention in casual conversation how her ex-boyfriend, a Thai man, had given his entire salary to his parents every month. She'd show me Facebook posts from her friends showing off gifts their foreign partners had bought. She'd share news articles about foreign men who'd abandoned Thai girlfriends after getting what they wanted. All of it reinforced the same narrative. Good men give, bad men take, and only selfish Western colonialists question cultural obligations. By the time we'd been together a year, I'd paid approximately £18,000 in various cultural obligations. The monthly family support, the Buddhist holiday expenses, the sin sod, the spirit house, various smaller gifts and contributions for family emergencies, medical bills, her brother's motorcycle repairs, her niece's school fees. Every single expense had been framed as a cultural requirement, a moral obligation, a way to prove I was different from other Western men, and I'd paid it all. More than that, I'd defended it all. I'd gotten into arguments in expat forums with other foreign men who complained about their Thai partners' financial expectations. I'd called them cheap, culturally insensitive, neo-colonial in their attitudes. I'd written long posts explaining Thai family culture, the importance of respect, money, the communal nature of Thai society versus Western individualism. I'd positioned myself as someone who actually understood Thailand, unlike those bitter expats who just wanted to take without giving. Looking back at those forum posts now makes me physically ill. I was so convinced of my own cultural sensitivity, so invested in being seen as one of the good ones, that I was actively defending the exact manipulation I was experiencing. I'd become an unwitting spokesman for a scam. The cracks in the narrative started small. Narisa had told me that in Thai culture, a girlfriend doesn't work once her boyfriend is providing for her. It would make him lose face to have his woman working when he has money. So she'd quit her job at a tour company about 6 months into our relationship. But one day I saw her Facebook posts from midday on a Wednesday, and she was clearly at a restaurant with friends, shopping bags visible in the photos. When I asked about it that evening, she seemed flustered. She said Thai culture required her to maintain social relationships, that isolating herself would make people think I was controlling her. The shopping bags? She'd bought gifts for her family, using the money I'd given her. It was all for others, never for herself. This seemed plausible, but something about her defensiveness bothered me. Another time, her brother needed 15,000 baht for motorcycle repairs. I sent it immediately. Family helping family, Thai culture. I knew the script. 2 weeks later, I saw photos on Facebook of him at a party. Someone had tagged him in a photo showing a brand new smartphone. When I mentioned this to Narisa, she got angry. Why was I spying on her family's Facebook? Why did I care what her brother bought? Maybe someone gave him the phone as a gift. Maybe he'd saved money. In Thai culture, she said coldly, you don't question family about how they spend money. That's disrespectful. I apologized, but the doubt lingered. The real unraveling began with a conversation I had with a Scottish friend who'd also retired to Thailand. Ian had been living in Chiang Mai for 5 years with his Thai partner. We'd met through an expat group and stayed in occasional contact. Over beers one evening, I mentioned casually how expensive it was to maintain proper cultural respect for my girlfriend's family. Ian looked confused. He asked what I meant. I explained the monthly support payments, the holiday obligations, the spirit house contribution. Ian's expression shifted from confusion to concern. He asked how much I was paying monthly. When I told him 30,000 baht, his eyes widened. He said his partner's parents lived with them, and he provided for household expenses, but there was no formal monthly payment. He'd never heard of family respect money as a cultural requirement. He'd paid sin sod, of course, but it had been 200,000 baht, and had been partially returned to them after the ceremony. Apparently that was traditional. The spirit house thing sounded wrong too. Those usually cost 10 to 15,000 baht, not 90,000. Had I verified any of this with other Thai people? I felt defensive immediately. I said his situation was different, Chiang Mai versus Isaan, different regional cultures, different family expectations. And anyway, wasn't he worried about seeming like a cheap foreigner? Ian gave me a long look. He said gently that Thai culture was about respect, yes, but respect wasn't just measured in baht. If someone was telling me that every form of respect required large cash payments, maybe I should get a second opinion. We moved on to other topics, but his words stayed with me. I started doing something I hadn't done before, independent research. Not the cursory Googling I'd done previously while already convinced of Narisa's explanations, but systematic investigation. I joined Thai cultural forums. I read academic articles about Isaan family structures. I watched YouTube videos by Thai people explaining actual cultural practices. And with every hour of research, my stomach sank further. The monthly family support, not a universal cultural requirement. Some families did receive support from children, but it was informal, based on need, and certainly not a fixed monthly amount demanded from a boyfriend rather than a spouse. The Buddhist holiday expenses. Temple donations were typically small, 20 to 100 baht. Gifts for family during holidays were normal but shouldn't be financially burdensome. The spirit house cost? Wildly inflated. A nice spirit house cost 10 to 20,000 baht. 90,000 was absurd unless it was being gold-plated. The sin-sod escalation? Red flag. The amount is negotiated once and shouldn't double based on discovering the groom has money. I found forum threads, dozens of them, from other foreign men describing identical patterns. The monthly payments that started reasonable and escalated. The cultural obligations that only ever went one direction. The weaponization of respect and face to prevent questioning. The accusations of being a cheap, culturally insensitive foreigner whenever they pushed back. It was a script, a literal script that was being run on foreign men across Thailand. and I'd fallen for every single line. The evidence was overwhelming, but I still couldn't quite accept it. There was too much cognitive dissonance. If Narisa was manipulating me, what did that say about my judgment? About my cultural understanding? About all those forum posts I'd written defending these practices? I needed confirmation from someone I trusted who actually knew Thai culture intimately. I reached out to Somkid, a Thai colleague I'd met through volunteer work with a local charity. Somkid was from Bangkok but had family in Isaan. His English was excellent, and he had a PhD in sociology. If anyone could help me understand whether I was overreacting or being scammed, it was him. We met for lunch, and I showed him screenshots of various messages from Narisa explaining different cultural obligations. I watched his face as he read through them. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he looked up at me and said, "Duncan, this is not Thai culture. This is someone taking advantage of you." He went through each claim systematically. The monthly family support, not a formalized cultural requirement, especially not at that amount, especially not from a boyfriend rather than husband. The Buddhist holiday obligations, massively inflated, both in frequency and cost. The spirit house, outrageous price, and traditionally the family builds it themselves or splits the cost, not demands the boyfriend pay entirely. The sin sod doubling, absolutely wrong, suggests the first negotiation wasn't done in good faith. Some kid asked if Narisa had discouraged me from talking to other Thai people about these things. I realized she'd said other Thai people might be jealous, or from different backgrounds, or too westernized to understand real traditional culture. He nodded. That was a classic isolation tactic. I asked him if he thought she was consciously manipulating me, or if maybe she just had an unusual understanding of culture. He chose his words carefully. He said that cultural practices do vary by region and family, but the pattern I was describing, constant financial demands, resistance to verification, accusations of disrespect, when questioning that wasn't cultural variation, that was exploitation, dressed up in cultural clothing. I felt physically ill. I'd paid £18,000 based on lies. But the financial loss wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the shame. I'd defended these practices to other people. I'd argued with other expat men, calling them cheap and culturally insensitive when they'd been right and I'd been wrong. I'd positioned myself as culturally enlightened when I'd actually been the most gullible person in the room. My progressive politics, my social justice background, my careful thinking about colonialism and power dynamics, all of it had been weaponized against me. I'd been so afraid of being the ugly foreigner that I'd become the perfect mark. The manipulation was elegant in its own horrible way. Narisa hadn't targeted my greed or my sexual appetites or any of the typical vulnerabilities. She'd targeted my values. She'd turned my genuine desire to be ethical and respectful into a psychological trap. The family gathering where everything exploded happened about 2 weeks after my conversation with Som Kid. Narisa's family was celebrating her cousin's graduation, and I was invited. I'd brought Som Kid along as well, partly because Narisa had been encouraging me to bring Thai friends to show I was integrated into Thai culture, and partly because I wanted a witness, someone who could verify whether what I was seeing was normal or not. The party was at her parents' house in a village outside Udon Thani. There was a lot of food, a lot of people, a lot of Lao whiskey. Everyone was friendly and welcoming. Narisa's mother made a point of thanking me for my support, which made me feel guilty about my doubts. Maybe I'd been overthinking everything. Maybe Som Kid had misunderstood because he was from Bangkok. Maybe my research had led me astray because I'd been looking at general cultural information rather than this specific family's traditions. I was actually starting to relax when her uncle made his comment. He was in his 50s, a rice farmer with sun-weathered skin and a broad smile. He'd been drinking steadily for about 2 hours and was in that expansive, overly friendly state drunk people sometimes reach. He said something in Thai to the group at our table, gesturing toward me and laughing. A few people looked uncomfortable. Narisa's face went pale. I looked at Som Kid, who'd gone very still. I asked him what had been said. He glanced at Narisa, then back to me. He said the uncle had made a joke about foreign boyfriends who give too much money. He'd said something like, "This one must really love her, giving so much every month." Not like Thai boyfriends, we're too smart for that. I asked Som Kid to tell me exactly what was said, word for word. He hesitated. I insisted. He translated, "Narisa is so clever. She tells her Farang that Isaan families need money every month, and he believes it. Even her parents say she asks for too much, but what can they do? Foreign money is good money." The table went completely silent. I looked at Narisa. She was staring at her uncle with an expression that was equal parts fury and panic. I looked at her parents. Her father looked deeply uncomfortable. Her mother looked like she wanted to disappear. I asked Som Kid to ask the uncle directly if it was true that Narisa's parents thought she was asking for too much money from me. The uncle, too drunk to realize what he'd just revealed, nodded enthusiastically. He said something long in Thai. Som Kid translated slowly. He says that Narisa's parents think the monthly money is unnecessary. They told her she should let you decide if you want to help them, not demand it. They said it makes them uncomfortable that she's making you pay so much. They worry you'll think all Thai families are like this. I stood up from the table. I needed air. I walked out to the edge of the property, near the rice fields, and just stood there, trying to process what I'd just heard. Narisa's own family had contradicted her. Her parents, the people who were supposedly expecting and requiring this monthly support, thought it was too much. They hadn't asked for it. She had demanded it and told me it was their cultural expectation. How many other cultural requirements had been her invention rather than their request? Was any of it real? I heard footsteps behind me. Narisa approached, her face a mask of forced calm. She started with anger, which I'd learned was her default when cornered. How dare her uncle say those things? He was drunk, he didn't know what he was talking about, he was jealous because he was poor. This was why she'd told me Thai families could be complicated, why we shouldn't listen to everyone. I cut her off. I said I wanted the truth. Was the monthly money actually a requirement from her parents, or had she been telling me that to get money from me? She switched tactics to hurt defensiveness. Did I really think she'd lie about her own culture? Was I calling her a liar based on what some drunk uncle said? After everything she'd taught me about Thai culture, after all the time we'd spent together, I was going to believe gossip over her? I said I wasn't basing it only on her uncle. I'd been doing research. I'd spoken to Som Kid. I'd read about actual Thai cultural practices, the monthly payments, the inflated holiday expenses. The spirit house costs, none of it matched what real Thai culture required. She tried the regional variation excuse. Som Kid was from Bangkok. He didn't understand Isaan culture. The internet information was generic, not specific to her family. Every family was different. I said that wasn't good enough. I wanted to hear from her parents directly whether they'd asked for the monthly money or if she'd told me they needed it without their knowledge. She fell apart then. Not in a genuine emotional collapse way, but in a theatrical performance way. Tears, accusations, attacks on my character. How could I humiliate her like this in front of her family? How could I make her look like a liar? I was just like every other foreign man, giving money until he got bored and then looking for an excuse to stop. I'd promised I was different, that I understood Thai culture, that I'd take care of her family. Now I was taking it all back because of some drunk uncle's joke. She'd trusted me with her heart, with her family, and I was treating her like a scammer. I stood there watching this performance, and for the first time I saw it clearly for what it was. This wasn't hurt feelings. This was a last-ditch manipulation attempt. She was trying to shame me back into compliance, to make me feel like the bad guy for questioning her, to reactivate my guilt about being the ugly foreigner. But it didn't work anymore. The mechanism was broken. I could see the strings. I said quietly that I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I just wanted honesty. If she'd exaggerated some cultural requirements to get money from me, we could talk about it, figure out a way forward. But I couldn't continue in a relationship where I didn't know what was real and what was manipulation. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw the calculation happening behind her eyes. She was deciding whether to double down or cut her losses. She chose defiance. "Fine," she said. Maybe she'd made some things sound more required than they were. Maybe the monthly amount was higher than absolutely necessary. But I'd wanted to help her family, hadn't I? I'd said I wanted to support them. She'd just been helping me understand how to do that in a Thai way. If I was going to be stingy now, after everything, then maybe I wasn't the person she'd thought I was. Maybe I was just another cheap foreign man after all. I left the party. Somkid drove me back to my apartment in Udon Thani. We didn't talk much during the drive. What was there to say? When we arrived, he told me he was sorry. He said he'd seen this pattern before with foreign men dating Thai women, though usually not executed with such sophistication. He said most Thai people were honest and kind, but there were some who saw foreign partners as income sources and got very good at cultural manipulation. The fact that Narisa had researched post-colonial theory to better exploit my guilt was particularly cynical. He advised me to end the relationship and to be more careful in the future. Not every cultural claim needed to be questioned, he said, but consistent requests for money that triggered guilt and shame when questioned, that was a red flag. I thanked him for his honesty and for translating at the party. He'd probably saved me from years more of this. Over the next week, I did a complete forensic analysis of the relationship. I went through bank statements, messages, every cultural claim Narisa had made. I created a spreadsheet. On one side, what I'd been told was required by Thai culture. On the other side, what actual Thai culture required based on multiple verified sources. The discrepancy was staggering. The monthly family support. She'd claimed 30,000 baht was standard. Actual norm was informal support as needed, maybe 5 to 10,000 baht monthly if the family was truly struggling. Markup, 200 to 300%. Plus it was formalized when it should have been voluntary. The sin sod. She'd escalated it from 300,000 to 600,000 baht. Actual range for her background should have been 150,000 to 300,000 baht maximum. Markup, 100 to 300%. The Spirit House. She'd charged 90,000 baht. Actual cost should have been 10 to 15,000. Markup, 500 to 800%. The Buddhist holiday obligations. She'd claimed 30 to 40,000 baht per major holiday. Actual appropriate donations were typically 100 to 500 baht to temples, with modest gifts for family. Markup, several thousand %. I calculated the total. In 17 months, I'd paid approximately £28,000 for various cultural obligations. If I'd paid what Thai cultural practices actually required, the total would have been approximately £4,000. She'd extracted £24,000 through cultural manipulation. That's an exploitation premium of 600%. The psychology of how it had worked was almost more interesting than the financial extraction. Narisa hadn't targeted my greed or vanity or lust, the typical vectors for scams. She'd targeted something much more sophisticated, my ethical framework. She'd identified that I had significant guilt about Western colonialism, that I was hyper-aware of power dynamics between wealthy Westerners and Southeast Asians, and that I desperately wanted to be seen as one of the good ones. Then she'd built a system where every financial demand was framed as a test of those values. Questioning an expense wasn't just being financially prudent, it was being a neo-colonialist. Asking for verification wasn't just due diligence, it was racist distrust of Thai people. Setting boundaries wasn't healthy, it was perpetuating Western exploitation. She'd created a framework where my own progressive values prevented me from protecting myself. And she'd isolated me from alternative information sources by suggesting that other Thai people might be too westernized, or that expat advice was from culturally insensitive men, or that internet research couldn't capture the nuances of her specific family's traditions. Every potential reality check had been pre-discredited. It was a brilliantly designed psychological trap. What made me angrier than the money, angrier than the lies, was the realization that she'd likely done this before. Her English was too good. Her understanding of Western progressive politics was too sophisticated. Her manipulation techniques were too polished. This wasn't opportunistic exploitation, this was a refined system. I did some investigating. I reached out to the expat community in Udon Thani and Confronting, asking if anyone knew Narisa or had dated her previously. 3 men responded privately. All 3 described similar patterns. One man, a German named Klaus, said he'd dated her 2 years ago and had paid about 15,000 euros over 8 months before his Thai friends told him he was being scammed. Another man, Australian, said he'd met her on the same dating app and had gone on a few dates before a friend warned him that she had a reputation in the local community. A third man just said cryptically that he'd learned an expensive lesson about verifying cultural claims. She was known. Not widely, and not openly, Thai culture values not causing others to lose face, so people didn't spread gossip publicly. But within certain expat circles, there was awareness that Narisa Fongsri from Confronting was someone to be cautious about. I never confronted her again directly after that party. There didn't seem to be much point. She'd made a half admission, and that was probably as close to honesty as I'd get. I sent her a message saying the relationship was over, that I wouldn't be making any more payments, and that I hoped she'd be more honest with whoever she dated next. Her response was predictable: fury, accusations, claims that I'd led her on and wasted her time, threats to tell people I was a bad man who'd abandoned her. None of it moved me. I'd seen behind the curtain. I blocked her on all platforms. I later heard through the Expat network that she'd started dating a new foreign man within a month. I hoped he'd be smarter than I was, but I wasn't optimistic. The emotional aftermath was complicated. The money loss was significant but not devastating. I could afford it, even if it hurt. The deeper damage was to my sense of judgment and identity. I'd built my entire career around understanding power dynamics, protecting vulnerable people, fighting exploitation, and I'd been comprehensively outmaneuvered by someone who understood exactly how to weaponize those values against me. I'd been so convinced of my own cultural sensitivity that I'd become blind to manipulation. Worse, I'd actively defended the manipulation to other people. I'd written forum posts explaining Thai family obligations to skeptical expats. I'd called other foreign men cheap and culturally insensitive when they complained about financial demands from Thai partners. I'd positioned myself as someone who actually understood Thailand, unlike those bitter expats who just wanted to exploit women. Every single one of those statements now felt like evidence of how thoroughly I'd been fooled. I had to go back and delete those forum posts. I had to message some of the men I'd argued with and apologize. That was harder than losing the money. I spent a lot of time in the months after the breakup genuinely learning about Thai culture, not Narisa's version but the actual thing. I took a course at a university in Chiang Mai on Thai society and culture. I made friends with Thai people who had no connection to Narisa and no financial interest in me. I read extensively academic articles, Thai authors, cultural histories. I learned to separate real traditions from manipulative distortions. Thai culture is deeply beautiful in many ways. The emphasis on respect for elders is real, though it's expressed through behavior and consideration more than cash payments. The communal family structure is real, though it involves reciprocal obligations, not one-way extraction. The Buddhist influence on daily life is real, though temple donations are voluntary and modest. The concept of face is real, though it's about dignity and social harmony, not about justifying unlimited expenses. Sin Sod is a real tradition with deep meaning about family bonds and respect, though amounts are negotiated honestly and often partially returned. All of these things are genuine and worthy of respect. What Narisa had done was take these real cultural elements and weaponize them, exaggerate them, twist them into a system for extracting money from a foreigner who was desperate not to be disrespectful. I can now identify the red flags that I missed at the time. Red flag 1. She positioned herself as the sole authority on Thai culture and discouraged me from seeking alternative perspectives. Real cultural education welcomes questions and multiple viewpoints. Manipulation requires information control. Red flag 2. Every cultural obligation required significant money, and the amounts escalated over time. Real culture has reciprocal obligations and natural limits. Exploitation has a constant upward financial trajectory. Red flag 3. Questioning anything was framed as disrespect or moral failure. Real culture can withstand inquiry. Manipulation falls apart under scrutiny. Red flag 4. Cultural requirements were asymmetric. always obligations for me to fulfill, never for her. Real culture has bidirectional responsibilities. Exploitation is unidirectional. Red flag 5. She used my specific psychological vulnerabilities, in my case, colonial guilt, to prevent resistance. Real cultural exchange doesn't require psychological manipulation. Exploitation identifies and targets your specific weaknesses. Red flag 6. Other people in her community seemed uncomfortable with the arrangements but didn't speak up directly. Real culture has community consensus. Manipulation creates awkward complicity. If I could go back and give myself advice at the beginning of that relationship, here's what I'd say. First, cultural respect and critical thinking are not opposites. You can honor Thai culture while also verifying claims about what it requires. In fact, real respect means caring enough to understand accurately, not just accepting whatever you're told. Second, if someone is isolating you from alternative information sources, discouraging you from asking other Thai people, dismissing internet research, attacking expat community input, that's a control tactic, not cultural guidance. Real teachers want you to learn broadly. Manipulators want you to learn only from them. Third, establish financial boundaries early and explicitly. Decide what you're comfortable contributing to a partner's family based on your values and resources, then stick to it. Don't let guilt or shame move those boundaries. Fourth, watch for escalation patterns. If cultural obligations keep increasing over time, if there's always another urgent need or ceremony or requirement, that's exploitation, not culture. Real cultural obligations have natural rhythms and reasonable limits. Fifth, maintain connections with both Thai and expat communities. You need people who can reality check your experiences without agenda. Isolation is a massive red flag. Sixth, if questioning makes you the bad guy, you're being manipulated. Healthy relationships, cultural exchange, and genuine respect can all coexist with questions, boundaries, and verification. I also want to address the broader context here, because it matters. What happened to me wasn't unique, and it wasn't unique to Thailand. This pattern, weaponizing cultural differences to manipulate foreign partners, happens globally, wherever there are power imbalances and cultural gaps. Foreign men in the Philippines get told certain things are Filipino culture. Foreign women in Morocco get told certain things are Moroccan culture. Foreign partners in any number of countries get exploited through the same basic mechanism. You don't understand our culture, this is how we do things. Questioning is disrespectful. You're just another ignorant foreigner if you resist. The specifics vary by culture, but the structure is the same. And the victims are often people like me, thoughtful, well-intentioned people who are trying hard to be respectful and who have enough self-awareness to doubt themselves. The manipulation works best on people who are actually capable of cultural sensitivity, because those people can be convinced that their doubts are evidence of their own prejudice, rather than legitimate concerns. This isn't an anti-Thai message. Thai people are not more or less likely to be manipulative than any other population. Most Thai people are honest, kind, and wouldn't dream of exploiting a foreign partner. What Narisa did was individual manipulation, not cultural expression. But it's also true that cultural gaps create opportunities for exploitation, and some people will take those opportunities. The solution isn't to be suspicious of all cross-cultural relationships. The solution is to be thoughtful, to verify, to maintain boundaries, to stay connected to multiple information sources, and to remember that cultural respect and self-protection aren't contradictory. You can honor Thai culture deeply, while also insisting on honesty and reciprocity in your relationship. I'm still in Thailand as I write this. I didn't let this experience ruin the country for me. I've been here for 3 years now, and I've built a life I value. I have Thai friends, I've continued learning the language, I volunteer with local charities. I eventually started dating again, a Thai woman named Pornthip who's a teacher in Chiang Mai. Our relationship is completely different. She's never asked me for money for her family. When I offered to help with something once, she was appreciative but not expectant. She actively encourages me to ask Thai friends about cultural practices because she wants me to understand accurately. She thinks the idea of monthly respect money as a boyfriend is bizarre, and not at all standard Thai culture. Our relationship feels like a partnership, not an extraction operation. The difference is night and day. The 28,000 pounds I lost still stings, but I've made peace with it. I paid for a very expensive education in psychological manipulation, cultural weaponization, and the limits of good intentions. I learned that progressive politics and cultural sensitivity, while valuable, don't protect you from exploitation if you're not also willing to verify, question, and maintain boundaries. I learned that the fear of being seen as a bad person can make you vulnerable to people who understand how to trigger that fear. I learned that Thai culture is rich and meaningful and worth respecting, but that Thai culture, as invoked by one person in a relationship, requires verification, not blind acceptance. Those are hard lessons, but they're valuable ones. If you're watching this and you're in a cross-cultural relationship where cultural claims are frequently used to justify financial demands, please do your own research. Ask multiple Thai people, not just your partner and her family. Join expat forums and ask about specific practices. Google is your friend. Academic sources exist. Cultural centers will answer questions. Don't let anyone tell you that verification is disrespectful. Don't let anyone isolate you from alternative information sources. Don't let guilt or shame about being foreign override your basic right to understand what you're being asked to give. Thai culture is beautiful and deserves respect. But respect means accurate understanding, not blind compliance. And anyone who tells you that questioning is disrespectful is someone who doesn't want you looking too closely at what they're asking for. The uncle at that party, drunk as he was, did me an enormous favor. His loose tongue broke the spell. Without that moment, I might have continued for years, slowly bleeding money, convincing myself it was all necessary and cultural and proof that I was one of the good foreigners. I'd probably have eventually married Narisa, paid an enormous wedding cost justified as traditional, and spent decades funding a family that never actually requested or expected that level of support. The financial cost would have been catastrophic, the psychological cost even worse. I'm grateful to that drunk uncle. I'm grateful to Somkid for translating accurately even when it was awkward. I'm grateful to the expat community members who shared their own experiences with Narisa so I knew I wasn't unique. And I'm grateful, in a strange way, to Narisa herself for teaching me that good intentions and cultural awareness are necessary but not sufficient. You also need verification, boundaries, and a willingness to believe that being skeptical doesn't make you a bad person sometimes, it just makes you a smart one.